said they wanted to know a little bit more about web accessibility and what we can do with it in WordPress. We're going to be covering
Something else.
some.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to take over. Sorry for this interruption. We're going to talk about time. And this is a brainchild of Terry and I. We had a crazy thought process afternoon. And for those of you who have WordPress sites with Selco, Terry and I came up with a new widget. And Terry did a really great job coding it. The problem I have with WordPress and a lot of the widgets out there is there's no real good widget for hours. And that's something you all need. Because that's one of the main reasons people go to your website. I'm going to be honest. It's one of the main reasons I go to any website is hours. So we built our own. So, and Terry sent email and stuff out in case you haven't already seen it. But the widget actually allows you to show the hours in different methods. You can have it show it by showing what the time is today with a button to expand the table, or you can just always show the table. And the other cool thing is it will also show upcoming closures. But that is actually not the coolest thing about this widget. The cool thing about this widget, the one rule Terry and I had going into this is it must be completely dynamic, which means you get to do nothing. Because it pulls all this information directly from Horizon. This is moving on. Because this means as you update your hours and you mark days as closed in Horizon, this widget is going to display it on your website. And this widget looks 7 days into the future. So you'll see how it says upcoming closures and it has the dates. It will, those won't be there if you don't have any close dates coming up. But as you have holidays and stuff like that, it's automatically going to display that. So, yay, this is a widget that means less for you to do or remember or think about. Right, I'll get back to you.
So yeah, this was a fun little project. I don't know, occasionally I will send out, when I get bored, I'll send out an email, say, hey, give me some ideas. And this was one that we were able to take off on right away. I did have 2 other ones that we're thinking about. So, anyway. No, stop. Web accessibility. We're going to discuss a little bit about what it means, some evaluation tools, what our limitations are being a WordPress site versus a static HTML site, what we can do with our content, and I want to show you an example of a screen reader so that you can get the idea of what somebody who is vision impaired, how they search the web, or actually use the web. And then there is a list of accessible themes from an article that I found. It's about 1.5 years, 2 years old, but they're probably the most accessible themes. So the main thing, the main 4 things to pull out of accessibility is we have to have our websites be perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. And what we mean, the biggest takeaway from perceivable is making sure you put alternate text into all of your images. If I turn my images off, because let's say I'm in the country and I have crappy DSL or I'm still on dial-up, I'll turn my images off. If you do not have alternate text on your images, which you can do with WordPress when you upload media, they get a big blank nothing. So that is totally not perceivable. They have no idea what that is, what that was. Operable meaning we need to be able to navigate without a mouse. You'll be able to keyboard and tab. So there's if you are actually doing the static HTML, you even have control over the tab order. So when I hit tab, where do I go? And then tab again, where do I go? We are somewhat limited being a CMS, but it still works. Understandable? Stick to layouts and interfaces that are predictable and intuitive. I remember seeing back, what is it? About 8 years ago, 10 years ago, they came out with their website and it was just a big, graphic intense racetrack. And you were supposed to be able to figure out what pages you wanted to go see. So we want to make sure that if we want to keep accessibility as a main topic on our site, stick with the normal kind of menus here, widgets here, or widgets over here. Don't get too fancy, because when I start taking out images and start using different helping tools to go through your website, may not make as much sense as it did when we laid it out and we can see it on a big screen. And then robust, we want to make sure that browsers, readers, it's mobile friendly, those kind of things. So Aria is an accessibility standard that is kind of interesting. Here's the definition, or it's actually this long on WW3. So I just picked out the current criteria functionally used in websites is not available to some users of disabilities, especially people who rely on screen readers and people who cannot use a mouse. And you might think that that's a pretty limited subset, but there are a lot of people with tremors, and it's really hard to fine-tune a mouse and hit those, especially if you have a lot of navigation items and they're crunched together really tightly. It gets very hard to use it. What it actually does is it provides a framework, and again, that's a little tough for us to take advantage of when we're using a CMS with themes. But there are themes like 2011 actually does have Aria sections in it. So what it will do is I can put a piece of HTML code in that says, this is my header, this is my navigation, this is my primary content, this is my secondary content. You don't see that, but the browser brings it in. It's almost like a comment, okay? And then when you're tabbing through, you give the user an option to skip to primary content. They hit tab again and get the option to skip to secondary content. So in our basic themes, like say 2011, primary content is what you would expect. Secondary content is your widgets. So if all they want to see is your hours, they hit tab, they hit the heading image, they get to that Aria text that says, do you want to skip to primary content? Say no, I hit tab again. Do you want to skip to secondary tab or secondary content? I hit enter, and now I'm tabbing over in the windows or in the widgets. So it's really kind of handy. It doesn't impact the normal users. So if you're just using full vision on a browser, there's no impact. But if you're using tabs or a reader, it gives them more options. What I'd like to do, so Grand Meadow's site was using 2011. So if I tab, you can see that the title, is a link, so it went blue. When I tab again, it went over to the search. I tab again, see that little thing up in the top? That says skip to primary content. If I hit enter, now I'm in my posts. Now, and then I start tabbing. Notice with our posts, there is a lot of tabbing. There's the post title, which will take us to the post page. There's the date, there's the category, there's the tags that we've added. So if somebody was having to tab through your site, the more posts you have, it takes a long time before they get back up to the widgets. So I want to show you. So it took me a while to figure this out because this isn't my normal way of searching or navigating through. But then if I tab again, go secondary content, hit enter, and now I'm over on the widgets. And you see I just went through, now I'm on my account, and it'll go through all the links on the widgets. So that is what Aria does. And again, we're limited. We can't just say, I want my, what was that, Tyler? Control F5 takes us to...
You're in, it's just F5. Control F5 for Google, F5 for, I think.
Hello. I lost my mouse. Oh, I'm in tab mode. Oh, resume slideshow. Yes, please. So that's what Aria can do for us. And again, that is theme specific. So you have to actually look for that. Some evaluation tools. There's really a couple that I could find that were any good that didn't involve adding plugins and add-ons into your browser or downloading a whole piece of software that would climb through your HTML pages themselves. This one is the one you'll probably use. So you just type in the URL.
Meadow is misspelled.
A, missed my A. Thank you. So this one is kind of nice because you get the errors on the side and the warnings on the side, and everything is labeled within the site itself. And you can say, well, what are my 7 errors? Scroll through. And you can see most of them are yellow warnings. There's an error. My guess is no alternate text.
No.
Oh, or if you hover over it long enough, you don't have to guess. Okay, so that's Wave. That's probably the one that is the easiest for us to use. However, the other guy, it's kind of annoying where I don't actually get to see my mouse. What did you think when it goes yellow? I would be able to... Tyler, I lost your...
How'd you do that?
I don't know, man. I started using tabs and it got confused. How about if I do Alt? See, we're having a study in lack of accessibility.
Want me to call the help desk for you?
Oh, no, that's like,
There we go.
there you go.
Alt-Tab, keyboard interface. When you lose your mouse, it's very important. This second one it actually gives you HTML. I thought it was kind of cool, but then I'm a kind of techie geek. You probably won't ever use that, but I put it up there for you to go, yeah, I'll use the first one. So what are our limitations? I kind of stressed them every other slide. We don't have control of the presentation layer. We have control of the content. And that That's the good thing and the bad thing about using a CMS or a content management system like Drupal or WordPress or Joomla or any of them is you don't want to have to deal with a presentation layer. That's why you're using it. So what can we do? What we can do is, the most important thing is semantic use of HTML. Don't use an H1 just to make the text bigger and darker. Don't use an H2 to make the text a little bit smaller and darker. Use them as they are intended for their semantic use. An H1 is the topic of the page. An H2 is the major sections of a page. Think of your outline when you were doing reports in school. That's what the H1s are for. Use emphasis and strong for stressing information, not italics or bold, because our readers treat them different. Alt text is a big thing. Always put in alt text and do as I say, not as I do, because I don't. Because I'm uploading like 50 images and I don't want to go through and add alt text to them all. But if you want to keep your sites not having a bunch of red, hey, you didn't put alt text in, or if you have like a small library in the country, you know some of your people using your site are on dial-up, chances are they're not installing your image, or they've got images turned off. So add the alt text. And the alt text is used by readers, and quite frankly, when you listen to a reader, which I will do towards the end of this presentation, you will see how determined a sight-impaired person is to actually use the web. I had to actually use YouTube to slow it down so that I could understand what it was reading. Yeah, what time is it?
22.
I'm not sure I want to change the settings in Tyler's Chrome. But here are the steps. These are posted, right? The slides? So
this afternoon.
they will be. So you can actually test something out in Chrome. You can go to any website and use these, go to customize settings, blah, 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 and turn images off, and then see what it looks like. It'd be very interesting to, I challenge you to do this for your site. Go back to the library, turn your images off, and then look at your site and see how usable the site is. So another thing we can do, this is very text intensive, is when you ever struggle with what words I should make a link? Click here? No. Don't do that, because again, a reader reads that text. You need to know what it is. Sometimes we'll use the whole URL as a link. Yeah, don't do that, because the reader reads the URL, then reads the link text. So it reads the URL twice. And that is an iffy URL to have to sit through twice. So what you want to kind of do, and this will gain you SEO, search engine optimization as well, is there's basically we have 5 things we can do. Exact match. So if you are doing a link to a breakout event, say it's a breakout event, and then have the link go to it, and have the link say it's a breakout event too, like you would for the title of a post page, right? That really boosts you up in the search ratings, gives that link, that page more, I forget the terminology, gives it more weight. So, And it's easier to understand, right? Click here, I'm not sure what that's going to do, but if it says manual or policies, I know where I'm going. You do a parcel match, where it's not exactly the same thing, but it's close enough that a human being will swap it out and it'll make sense. So the first two are very intuitive as to where this link is going. The closer you are to an exact match, the better you're going to get with SEO and accessibility. Branded, often you can see, right, go to the Selco site, and we'll just say Selco, and that will be the link, and it takes you to selco.info. iPhones, code, City Hall, whatever. It's not specific to the page, but it's specific to the site you're going. That's the next best. White noise, click here, link, all of those, don't use those. The reason is it does not add any useful information. And so that's why we tag it as white noise. And then doing the link, is, I've already said why we don't want to do that. Another thing we can do in tables, we don't use tables to lay out images. We don't use tables to lay out names. You can use tables to put the person's name with the corresponding image of them, because what a table is for is collecting data. It goes back to being semantic. What is it? Not what we use it for, but what was its intent. So a table is meant to have data. If you use, like if you put in our library plugin, the new library plugin, and you run it through, you're going to get the fact that I did not put table headers on. In this case, I don't want table headers. But it's kind of like a basic graphic design. Know the rule before you break it. And break it with a reason. Provide good contrast. See? Can you all read that in the back?
I can't read that in the front.
You can't even in the front? I can from here. But there's not good contrast, right? I've got a darker blue on a light, medium blue. Does not help. We can do the same thing on our pages, right? If you have a theme that lets you change the color, be mindful if you change the color that you want as much contrast as possible. White on blue, I can read. Black or darker blue on medium blue, that's really tough. So don't do that. Make sure you have as much contrast as possible. Also, fewer posts on the front page. I just kind of alluded to it, but I didn't really say it. On mine, I let it go like 20 posts on my test blog because I didn't want to have to go next, next, next. I just wanted to scroll until I started tabbing and tabbing and tabbing. And then I went, okay, 5 is good. So do 5. And then that's a trade-off too, right? Do I want my patron? How far back in the history of my posts do they typically go? 5 is probably pushing it, probably right. If you did 1 a week, that's a month ago. So if you're very active, yes. If you're not very active, 3 might be all you need, right? Because already 3 is 6 months ago. So that all depends on your site and your library and how you use the front pages. I did that one, did that one, did that one. Okay, so, oh good. I wanted to, hey, I got my mouse back until I click this. And we have,
Heading left.
okay. Let's do this. So this is an example of a screen reader. This is the page. Pretty simple, extremely simple. But this is what a page reader sounds like.
Heading level 150. Pure perfect beach paradise. Left parent example taken from http://www.expedia.com/daily/theme/vacation/beach. Right parent. So many beaches, so little time.
And you can
want
see the
some to
cursor
understand the M dash, but how do you
going
choose from there?
sentence
And
by
depends on
sentence.
what you'd like to do. Here are a few ideas to get you started. Bullet love the nightlife. Consider link Cancun and link. Jamaica and link, or link South Beach, Florida and link. Bullet escape civilization, explore the natural beauty of link, Kauai and link Turks and...
So you can see how brutal it is. And we don't have images. You sprinkle a healthy amount of images on here with alternate text, and it's going to say image, blah, 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 and it reads the alternate text. And then if that image is a link, it'll say link, and then read the link. So what we think of as a normal website for the non-sight impaired, this is a pretty simple site, right? And this is painful. So that's why I say sight impaired folks that are actually using the web, they have some serious want to. Because I know a buddy that actually is sight impaired, and he does everything through a reader, but it becomes second nature to him. He can go that, he's got it actually speeded up. So, I believe, hey, it didn't eat the mouse this time. Oh. That's really weird. There are, whoops. So there are some other demos, and they talk more about accessibility. They're actually done by folks at different universities, and they are both legally blind. So, and they discuss, one uses a different reader than the one we demoed. But they talk about not only what it's like, but what to avoid, things like that. So there's a couple of images you can look through. Here's a list of different themes that I found on, I think it was, this was on WPMU, so it's the multi-user site for WordPress. And they list a whole bunch of themes here that they considered at the time the most accessibly friendly themes, and they vary. Some are more friendly than others, but and notice 2016. 2011 was I think their first foray into it, where they put in the Aria sections so that you could tab and skip. But 2016 is supposed to be much more accessible, meeting the accessibility standards much more. Whoops, watch the mouse button. And here's continuation of the list. And here's some plugins you might want to play with to help add accessibility. And the plugins and the themes were on the WPMU. And there's some other sources. Carrie Dills, I don't know how geeky you are into WordPress, but there was a thing called WP Water Cooler, and it was just a bunch of developers that got together and started yapping and Google Hangouting it. And now they've been doing it for 4 years now, 5 years now. And if you go in the WordPress community, these guys are like, your talk radio people. You see them at WordCamps and you go, oh, I know you. Okay, any other questions? Did I cover what you were looking for? Again, this was a very high level, meant to tease you and give you a taste.
Back to the contrast, is it better to do a light background with dark words or a dark background with light words, or is there like...
Depends on how. The question is, better to do light words on dark background or dark words on light background? It doesn't really matter. with a caveat. Doesn't matter, long as there's contrast, big enough contrast. See, that's barely tolerable, right? Black on dark medium blue. And it also depends on how am I getting that background. Am I using an image? If I'm using an image, it may not load. Now I have a dark background with white words, and the image doesn't load, and I get a white background with white words, and that's kind of the opposite of contrast. So, it's hard to go.
My dad, who has problems with his eyesight, he said it should be white and black, that's what you can really see.
Yeah, the most,
He can't see the other stuff very well now, and he really gets bugged by websites that even have the dark with the white words, actually.
yeah, so it should be black letters on a white background.
That's the best for him.
Yep, and remember too, as your patrons get older, as we get older, cones don't start to work as well, so we stop seeing certain colors. So we start losing our ability to differentiate on our contrast. So, but, on the other hand, if 99% of my users are trying to use my website and it's white with black letters, you can't look at that for very long before you have eye fatigue. So you have to balance it, and you have to figure out where your balance is. It's kind of like, I say a website, reaching 100% accessibility on your web page is similar to getting your network 100% secure. Okay? The best thing to do is, in this continuum, figure out what you can live with based on your typical users. Because you pretty much guarantee if I don't use much for images and I use a white background and black letters, that's not very appealing to the majority. But for my minority, they can finally use the website without causing eye strain. So you have to pick out in that continuum where you're satisfied being. Okay, any other questions? Hey, look at that. I didn't speed read it, and we still can get out a little bit early.